All right, so let's dive into this topic. So a lot of this evidence, unfortunately, for MBTI, or really analytical psychology, isn't really there because it's a very new science. This is something that happens with all science, all truth. There's definitely steps, there's kind of phases. And in the beginning, there's normally a very small amount of people who kind of think something, who theorize about something. And it often takes 10, 20, 100, hundreds of years to come up with a lot of longitudinal and peer-reviewed studies for it. So right now in this kind of scientific realm of 16 types, it's new, it's very, very on a very, very beginning scale, unfortunately. So we haven't gotten to the point where we're able to have a very consistent testing system that can show reliable evidence and kind of be able to test these things, use brain scans perhaps, whatever that may be, examining behavior. So what do we have? If we're not there yet, if we're 100, 200 years away from having a lot of peer-reviewed studies and having that wealth of evidence, what do we have at the beginning of a science like this? We have stuff that's in plain sight, things that are very, very easy to see regardless of some of these kind of journalistic peer-reviewed studies. So a lot of this evidence is in plain sight. Stuff like the 16 types having those 8 functions, and we can look at those 8 functions and we can look at the 8 functions in general and assign language and understand how they connect to what we say and what we do. And these 8 functions are very connected to the language we use, of course, because it's literally our brain transcribing it outward. And it's very obvious that these 8 elements exist. So I'm just going to kind of go into how these 8 elements are seen in language and how you can see them if you're looking for evidence yourself and wanting to be able to type yourself or others as well. So how about these intuition functions? Abstract language and what ifs. Whenever people are talking about possibilities, theoretical what ifs, they're using their intuition functions to do that. So if someone goes, oh, what if this happened? What if this happens? They're discussing the different possibilities, and that's using their intuition functions. Things like want versus you want. So wanting things in the future, looking towards the future, having, fears of the future or being ambitious about the future. Generally, our ability to look into the future using our perceiving functions. Our perceiving functions, all that really means is it's how we perceive time, right? So we have our perceiving functions that look at things like time and space. It's how we perceive the world around us, and the time, space-time, of course, being combined, that we live within. So looking ahead within space-time, we look at wants and choices and potentials and possibilities in the future, things that aren't concrete, things that could happen one way, they could happen another way, we don't know yet. This future-focused words such as hope or want or way, I didn't put a comma there, but wish, desire, choose, choice, all of these different words are words that we use when we look towards the future, these future possibilities. And you can find this in any book, movie, or piece of human language. I promise, if you read any book, these words will come up, want will come up. You look at any, a Shakespeare play, you'll find these words. You look at any movie, do it today. Talk to your friend and hear for this stuff. Watch a show. It doesn't matter what show, it doesn't matter what book. I promise you, you will hear it. You will, right there. I just said it right there. You will, meaning you, which is extroverted, and will, which is your future. So will as well is another one of these words. I didn't put that one down. But want, way, wish, will, all of these words are pointing towards the future. And when you listen to people talk like I just did when I said you will, I wasn't thinking of that. But I'm using the functions when I talk because the evidence is in plain sight. It's how we talk. It's literally the words we use, as hard evidence as there could be. And those are the intuition functions. So look for that when you're listening to people talk, you're listening to your own thoughts, your own kind of inner world, you're listening to other people, you're watching a show. See if you spot the word want. That's the most common one. But there's other words such as hope and wish and choose and desire and passionate and all these words. Look for those words and see when they're coming out, and that will help you type people, but it will also help you kind of see this evidence in our language, how it literally is coming out. It's not nebulous, it's not vague, it's right there. It's hard evidence. Then we have the sensing functions, so SI and SE, and this is concrete language, so it's kind of looking at what is. It's not looking at the theoretical possibilities, but it's looking at the concrete kind of certainties. And the most common language we see is stuff like need versus you need. So I need this, I need to do this, I have to do this, you have to do this, you should do this, I should do this. Obligations, things that have to do with things you have to do to survive. And look for those words when you're reading a book. Look for I need, or you need, or we have to do this, or we should do this. look for those words, because those words are directly correlated, directly caused by these sensing functions, and you can find that evidence. Once again, look at any book, movie, or piece of human language. I promise you that you will find these words and that you will see them. This is just the way we talk. It doesn't matter what you choose. It could be the Bible, it could be Shakespeare, it could be maybe poems are short, they won't have all of them. But any piece of literature or writing or language, you will eventually find these words constantly, and they're going to be repetitive, and they're going to be non-stop. You're going to constantly be seeing this stuff. As soon as you can kind of open yourself up to this stuff, you're going to start seeing it everywhere. Right? You're going to. I said that right then. And you can immediately go, oh, you extroverted? Going. We know going to is in the future. We know what something will happen. I'm using the language. I'm using that function right there to look at your future. So that's just, it's constantly being used. And then we have the feeling function. So we're going through all the functions. So introverted feeling and extroverted feeling. This has to do with the emotional language of feelings. I feel versus you feel. I'm happy versus you're happy. I appreciate, I value, I'm happy, I'm sad. Stuff like this are emotional language. And you can see this in, same thing, any piece of literature. Look for when people are saying how they feel, when people are looking at how other people feel. How are you doing? Are you happy? Are you sad? What is your emotional state? Or I'm feeling this way. I'm expressing my emotions in this way. And you can find this in anything that is human language as well. So you'll see these kind of things coming, okay? There's people looking towards the future, then there's people using language looking towards the past, and then there's people using language to express their emotions, and finally, there's people using language to express their thinking and what they think is true, because we have that kind of past, present, future language, but we also have the true, false, and the good, bad language, and that's how we judge the world, because these are our judging functions. And so we have thinking and truth, words like, I think, this is true, that is true, this makes sense, this is logical, this is rational. Those are a little less often, but you're going to hear people say, oh, that's true, or I think that's true, or, yeah, I don't think that's true, or no, that's not right, that's wrong. Things like this that are assessing true, false kind of statements to things people are using constantly to think. And these functions are coming out in that language. And I implore you to watch a movie and see it for yourself and count. You can even, a great thing you could do, I do it in my brain, but you can do it in your brain, you can write it down, you can do it any way you want right there. You can look at this stuff and you can actually write down some of these things like want, need, think, feel, and count how many times they're coming out. And you're going to start seeing, every page, every single scene, they're coming out multiple times, and you're going to see just how constant the evidence for these functions really are and how in plain sight it is. And that we're really just not even noticing this, but this coding is literally coming out. It's being expressed in our behavior, in our words, in our language, and it's constantly there. It's true. Like I just said, it's true. That is our thinking functions. I'm even using it as I talk. I can't even avoid it, even if I wanted to. Right there, want, right? I want. So it's a choice. So this language is coming out. It's extremely true. It's extremely exciting because you can start to listen to people and go, oh, wow, I'm seeing you use this function, this function, this function, and this function. Right in these examples, I'm seeing you use this function more, which means you probably have it higher in your 8-function stack. And you can really start to type people and yourself very easily when you start to see this. When you start to see that code behind the 16 types, which is the title of the book that I have coming out, which actually looks in depth at these concepts and really helps kind of show this code that is behind our cognition. It's behind psychology entirely, and it's behind the 16 types. And once you start looking for this is the easiest to access, the most presentable evidence, and you can just count this stuff up and be like, wow, every book I read, I know what language they're going to use because I know the functions. I know they're going to talk about what they want. I know they're going to talk about what they think. I know they're going to talk about how they feel, because these are basic things that are building blocks of cognition. They're building blocks of consciousness or psychology. And I know that when I read things or listen or discuss with people, because this is the core of personality, this is the core of cognition and who we are, it's going to happen right there. It's going to. Looking into the future. We look into the future, past, present. We judge things by true or false, and we judge things by good or bad. That is just how human beings work. And once you start to see it, you don't even really need all those experiments and evidence, because you just start to see the evidence everywhere. Your evidence is every single book ever written, every single movie ever written, every single play, every single conversation you've had, every single time you think in your own head. The evidence is constant and it's completely overwhelming. That being said, We will go through that process as a science where we're doing peer-reviewed studies. We have better testing methods than we do now. We're going to look for biological indicators of this stuff. We're going to examine, we'll be using AI to examine language, to count how many times we're using our functions and all these percentages. That stuff will come. This is a new science. It's not at the point of mass peer-reviewed agreement, but it's a new science. Every single thing that's been a science has started out that way. We had things like Albert Einstein making claims and thinking things were true hundreds of years before they were being proven. And we've had literally countless other sciences that started out that way, where they started out with a smaller group of people that thought it was true. It wasn't well accepted. It wasn't mass understood. And over time, over hundreds of years, this stuff starts to get integrated. And that's what MBTI, while MBTI is more of the kind of pop psychology part of it, analytical psychology, the 16 type science in and of itself is a new science. It's something that is at the beginning phases. It's very exciting. It's very new. It's a great time to start learning about it and learning more. We don't know everything about it. We're going to learn more over hundreds of years. We're going to do experiments. We're going to learn things. We're going to learn how to test properly and how to decipher language properly and how to do this in an extremely scientific and objective way. We're not there yet, but hey, we're still willing to learn. We're still willing to think about it. We're still willing to try and progress it to that end stage where it's going to be accepted on a large scale. So don't be in despair about that in any way. So what's some of the additional evidence that we have? Because there is more than just language, although it is the best and very easy to see, and it's concrete and it's there and it's tangible. And it's like, wow, I'm seeing it. I can see the code. So a lot of additional evidence is harder to notice. It's less frequent. Like I said, those 8 functions, you're going to see them in every book. Whereas some of these other things, they come up. They're kind of behind our behavior. They might motivate our behavior, but it might not be as plain to see as straight up language. Things like the abstract versus concrete. When somebody is an abstract type and they use more of the abstract language than they do of the concrete language. Independent versus interdependent types. So we have affiliative versus pragmatic types. Types that prefer to do things independently, which we know is true of a personality trait, or people who work with groups and like to do things interdependently. So it's something you can examine of the human behavior, but it's not quite maybe as easy to see as words such as think, feel, want, or need. Things like being win-win focused and focusing on individual motives versus being systematic. So there's different ways that our cognition can be expressed, but these are a little bit hidden, and if you're looking for them and you're trying to examine them and understand them, you will start to see them more. Same with our interaction styles, things like introvert versus extrovert. This is actually the one out of all of them that was noticed first. I think probably it's the first thing you probably thought of when you think of personality is, am I an introvert or extrovert? It's something that actually is accepted on a large scale. From a scientific realm, but it's just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg, and that's one thing you can look for. Is this person introverted or extroverted? Do they care more about having order and control, or do they care about progression and chaos? Are they direct when they talk? Are they straight to the point? Are they giving lots of informative information, but they're not quite getting to the exact point? How do they talk? That's a little bit harder to notice. You might notice someone who says just one word sentences. Okay, they might be direct, but sometimes it's a little bit harder to see. So that's okay. Some of this evidence is much more difficult to understand and kind of see for it than some of the language stuff. But seek and you will find. The more you listen to people, I implore you to read books, watch movies, whatever you're doing, you'll basically be doing it whether you're trying or not. Listen to their language, listen to what they're saying, really examine every sentence they're saying and really start to understand what function is being used, because no matter what type you are, you're going to be using this language all throughout the day. You'll use all 8 functions every single day in different time increments. So you might use your last function for only maybe 30 minutes a day or 10 minutes. It can be different for everybody, but still pay attention to when you're using those functions. If you're dismissing a function, if you're really engaging with a function in particular, and other people when they're doing that as well. But avoid confirmation bias, of course. Definitely be careful not to try to find things in places where they're not there. Don't put evidence there that's not there. Just read it for what it is. Look for that objective truth. Look for what is literally being said, what words we're literally using, and start to understand it. Don't worry about fitting a system that you believe or fitting a certain kind of thought process into the world. Really look at the world, look at human language, look at human behavior, and really assess that, because the true, most perfect system, the most perfect way of understanding it might not be understood for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we're always progressing, we're always trying to learn more, put new pieces of the puzzle together, understand it on a better level, small and progress the science, because it's in its infancy, and that means there's going to be error, there's going to be misbeliefs, there's going to be new things we don't even know yet. So be open to that. Be open to understanding that there's new stuff we don't know yet, that there's new evidence that we don't quite understand, that there's new techniques we're going to use to be even more accurate and even more, true with how we think about it. So be open to that new evidence. Don't worry about trying to fit things into your preconceived beliefs. Just look for the evidence. Listen to people when they talk. Listen to yourself. Be introspective. Be extrospective, if that's the right word. I don't even know if that is a word. But look for how other people kind of behave and talk, and really try to examine it objectively without worrying too much about it fitting into whatever kind of belief system you have regarding the 16 types, because it is definitely something that has a lot of misinformation, and it can be very difficult to kind of decipher. But if you want to know the most accurate information that I believe that we have right now, it is analytical psychology. It is the stuff that I teach on the YouTube channel and on our Instagram page. If you're looking for what I think is the most up-to-date version of the science right now in the year 2024, then that's where you're going to want to go. But it will be progressing, it will be changing, it will be, getting better and better over our lifetimes and the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed and understand a little bit more about some of this evidence and where you can kind of look for it and understand for it. If you want more on language, more on evidence, more on this kind of topic, let me know in the comments below. And I hope you have a great day.